Hey everybody, it's Jamie here, the triathlon nutrition coach, and I'm here today to talk about a very common issue I see amongst people I've worked with over the years, and that is that people do not eat enough. And what I mean by that is they do not eat enough at meal times. It's a really, really big issue. And it's something that perhaps society to some extent has taught us over the years. We think breakfast, it's a quick meal. We've got to get it in, get out, go to work, whatever. Lunch, just grab it on the go. Again, you're at work, you're at school, whatever it might be. The afternoon comes, we're peckish, we're starving, and no surprise because we're not eating enough early in the day. Then we're likely to go and train. And that's obviously going to increase hunger cues even further. Then we go home, we have our dinner. Again, it's probably not a big enough meal. So, of course, what starts happening? You start snacking. And you start snacking in the evening when there's low quality food choices available. And you're a bit bored, you've got time, you're hungry, you're tired, and it's a way of making yourself feel better. So ultimately, the issue is people not eating enough around essentially not eating big enough meals. And when I say meals, I mean like formal meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I would include some snacks in there too. So when people are especially when they're trying to lose weight, they obviously think, we need to reduce portion sizes. We've all heard that. And of course, to some extent, obviously we do need to create a deficit. We all know that. But if you reduce portion sizes too much, it puts you into a situation where you're going to make bad choices further down the line. So it's about figuring out how much do you actually need to eat. So it's not about you having not enough willpower or lack of discipline. It's probably just the fact that you've got a poor structure, perhaps some poor habits, and a poor system about how you would eat for satiety and performance and body composition, etc. So the issue with small meals, it's obvious. You get hungry, and what then happens is your choices, they're sort of very reactive. They're not intentional, and they're generally going to be poor choices. So what we want to think more about here is when we're eating, as a triathlete, you're training hard and in largish volumes. So you need to be fueling the sessions that you're doing. Again, goes without saying. But if you underfuel the session, you can't work hard enough in the session. You therefore don't adapt from the training as well. And you're not going to burn as many calories because you're going into it underfueled. So actually, whilst you might be, creating a deficit earlier in the day, if that deficit is too much, it means you can't work hard in training or the desired intensity. And actually then you don't burn as many calories in training. So it kind of works against each other. So fueling has to be at the heart of this, and it has to be very intentional. Okay, so one phrase that I kind of remind myself of, not just with my clients, but also for myself, is that when meals are too small, poor quality snacking will become compulsory. You won't have a choice. Our emotions, our desire to kind of remain in homeostasis, to not be starving, get so strong that you just have to eat. Your conscious thought is overridden by the desire to have to eat. And as I say, that usually doesn't mean overeating on apples. It usually means overeating on some rubbish. Okay, so the answer here is not just better snacks. It's actually bigger meals. Now, the problem with that is it requires organisation. It requires a plan. And it also requires knowing what to eat, like when and how much. But people don't always believe that. They're like, yeah, but I'm trying to lose weight. I need to eat less. I need to eat less at dinner time. You know, da, 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 da. And very often when I start working with somebody, especially when there's a body composition goal, one of the most common things I hear is, I can't believe how much I'm eating and I'm still losing weight. And what we're talking about here is volume of food. They're obviously not eating more calories. I'm not going to try and deceive you into thinking you can get away with eating a pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and still lose weight. But they're eating greater food volume. And what that means is they're also, high volume foods which fill us up are usually also very nutrient dense. So what that also means is that you're giving yourself more nutrients. You're enhancing fueling, you're enhancing recovery. Whilst clients of mine will say, I can't believe how much I'm eating, friends of mine, family, other people who I've come into contact with have often said to me, I can't believe how much you're eating. You're always eating. And you're not overweight, and then they assume it's because I do a lot of training, I've got good genetics, and I don't actually train that much, and my genetics aren't good. I was a fat kid. It's always been a challenge for me. That's why I've ended up doing this as a job, because I was interested in nutrition, like why I couldn't lose weight, all of that kind of stuff. So they're not good genetics. What's happened for me personally is that I learned that how to eat, what to eat, and that the structure of my day was so dependent on food, because that would mean I could train better, I would have more energy for work, for life, for fun, and it makes me happier. If I'm constantly starving, I'm thinking about food all the time. If I'm more satiated, whilst I'm always looking forward to the next meal, I'm more able to kind of function. So eating more and eating enough, it gives you, it sort of creates more control, which I think is really, really important. So what is also important to understand is that when we're eating high satiety foods in abundance, so what I mean by high satiety foods, fibrous foods, protein dense foods, foods relatively high in fat, but they're all like unprocessed. So when we think about high fat food that's processed, I don't know, we think about biscuits or cake or something like that. When we think about higher fat food which is unprocessed, we think about avocado, salmon, very, very different choices. And of course, if you have a salmon fillet, the chances are that's going to fill you up a little bit more than eating a biscuit. So these high satiety foods are not to be eaten blindly. You still need to manage quantities. Certain high satiety foods, less so, like vegetables. It's hard to overeat on vegetables. But if we think about things like nuts, it's very easy to overeat nuts. So you always want to be managing quantity. Tracking calories, weighing food, all of that really helps. And what all of this high, nutrient dense, high satiety foods do, as I mentioned before, it allows you to recover better, fuel better. And that means you adapt better from the training that you're doing. You can work harder in the training that you're doing. So it's a performance strategy. And off the back of that, body composition, like good body composition, will follow. What is important to understand here, though, is that there is no one size fits all. Everybody's life is different. Obviously, we've all got different genetics, but beyond that, we're a different age. We have a different training plan. We've got a different training history. Some of us have been overweight. Some of us haven't. Some of us have an active job. Some of us don't. Some of us are running after kids. Some of us don't. Some of us have got a dog to walk. Some of us don't. Some of us have got all of those. So context is huge here. And that, I would say, the day-to-day context beyond things like races and training matter the most. And this is why generic nutrition advice often really breaks down, because whilst there's certain principles which will always be true, It's a matter of applying those principles to you in the right context, in the right quantities, at the right times. So whilst the principle behind this is kind of universal, if you like the execution by each of you isn't. It will be different for you. So the minutiae, like the big things matter the most, but the minutiae matter a little bit more. So as we reflect on those things I've just said, think about this. Are you constantly hungry? Are you snacking reactively? Not, eating foods that you don't plan to eat? Do you feel underfueled in training? Hungry, tired, low on energy? If any of those things are true, it's not because you're eating too much. It's because very likely your meals are too small. So one way of kind of getting in control of this is to plan. And I think this is really, really important. And it's something that I do in our house and I've done for some time. Each week on a Sunday, we plan what food we're going to have for the week ahead. If we're going out for dinner or we're meeting people for food, we'll factor that in. So on a Monday, we'll say, right, we're going to have salmon and potato and vegetables, for example. Tuesday, we'll have something else. Friday, if we're going out for dinner, we're going out for dinner. But we write down every meal in advance. And very often what we'll do, whatever we have for our evening meal, we'll double up, so we'll cook double the quantities, and we'll have that then for lunch the next day. You plan what you're eating, you go to the supermarket or you go online and have the food delivered, you have the food in your fridge and your cupboards, and you're more likely to eat it. It takes effort. There's no lie here. It's like anything, whatever you're trying to do with your life, to achieve something, you are going to have to put a little bit of effort into it. Obviously nowadays there's meal prep services, you can buy ready meals that are claimed to be healthy, etc. But for me, I think it's really important to take your time, plan the food, that sets intention, buy the food, another layer of intention, put it in the fridge, cook the food, high intention, eat it and enjoy it, and then feel the benefits. And as you layer those weeks up together, you want to do it again. It's like anything. If you feel better for it, you want to do more of it. As I mentioned before, everyone's circumstances are different. And ultimately, that's why people come to me for help. If you need help, if you're struggling, try some of the things I've mentioned here. But if you're still, struggling along, or you've actually just had enough of trying and you think, you know what, I just need a shortcut, I need to get this sorted. Well, send me a message. I don't always have space for new clients. If I do, we can have a little chat, see if it's the right thing for you, make sure I can help. I don't work with people if I don't think I can help. I'm honest and straight up about that. If it all looks good, I can help you come up with that plan, figure out what works for you, make it fit your life, and you'll get results. Simple as that. So, hope that helps. Feel free to share this. I'm trying to grow the podcast and the YouTube and all that, and it's good free advice. So, post it on your socials, share it with your friends, shout it from the rooftops. Not that people ever do that, but anyway, you feel free to do it if you want to. And I would be really grateful. So thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, whatever it is you're doing. And I'll see you all next week.